I think my generation thought they'd be done at 50. Well, that came and went. And people are working well into their 80s now, if they're living that long. And today, if you're born today in North America, you have over a 50% chance of living to 110.
Wow.
So we have to be thinking about working much longer than our history would prepare us for, right? Because, financing a 30-year retirement with healthcare in the United States, at least, that's just a daunting task. And most of us in the United States are not prepared for that. So we're all going to be working much, much longer.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a treat. Our guest is the author of Millennials and Management, The Essential Guide to Making It Work at Work, as well as her most recent book, The Boomerang Principle, Inspire Lifetime Loyalty from Your Employees. She is also the founder and CEO of Double Forte PR and Digital Marketing. Lee Caraher, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here today.
Yeah, well, we're excited to have you, and we're having a little conversation, and you're a business owner. You are working with millennials. You have you've pretty much been figuring out your own lifetime loyalty from your own employees, and you've written books about it. So please tell us about your career journey leading up to this point.
Sure. I've been in communications and public relations basically since I graduated from college a very long time ago. And I was fortunate to find the career that made most sense for me early on, and have traveled through it in many different kind of iterations. This company, Double Forte, I started almost 17 years ago, which I can't even believe. Really out of a need. I thought I was going to be a, communications officer at a big company. And then my mother got sick, was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. She was given 3 months to live. I knew I had to be in Wisconsin where she lived. I was in San Francisco, and I'm the breadwinner in our house. So I decided this will probably increase. No one's going to get younger. I need to be flexible, and I need to be able to put a roof over our heads. So I started my company really out of a need. I became an entrepreneur by accident. And now, 17 years later, I'm probably unemployable because...
Damaged goods.
Damaged goods. I like working for myself and being able to say no when I like to say no. So I've been very fortunate to find a career that I love, and then from a leadership perspective, run a business that I love. I've learned a lot of things the hard way, which is really what I share in my 2 books on how to, just run a better business by understanding people. That's pretty much it.
Beautiful. It's inspiring that you have done something that you didn't set out to do and made it work, and also now you're sharing all of that in your books, and that really does show your passion for the work that you do.
I think that I am blessed, doing a lot of work on myself, now that I'm this old, and I really feel like the reason I'm here on this planet is to help other people do great things. So I'm blessed of being in the right career, because this is what we do for a living. We help great companies do great things in their categories by telling their stories. And I think I'm a member of Entrepreneurs Organization, which you may know is the YPO for entrepreneurs. And part of that is really sharing your experience and sharing what has worked and what hasn't, so that other people can apply it. And for me, being as busy as I am, I can't join as many groups as I would like. So writing the book was that sharing.
Good for you. Good for you. Now, you've been at it for 17 years in your business. And for you, looking back through those 17 years, what were the biggest hurdles that you needed to overcome growing your business?
So I think of several. One, there's nothing that's changed more in our culture in the last 17 years than how people communicate. So I started my company before Twitter, and now about 50% of our work is in social media. And in terms of sort of always learning and always becoming fresh and keeping relevant, that has always been a great tenet, but it's never been so vital in terms of not just staying interesting, but staying relevant in business. And helping people around me understand they need to be relevant too, or I can't take them anywhere, basically. And that's been a big challenge, particularly for some of our older employees who liked the way it was done before and didn't want to learn something new. And when I wasn't able to convince them that they needed to learn new tasks and new skills, then I had to let them go. And it's always hard to let people go, but you have to put the business ahead of the people in that. As long as you're being very clear, if the business doesn't exist, you can't hire people. So you have to understand relevancy is really important. And I think a few times I learned that, sort of crashed up against it a couple of times when I just was like, oh, that will be fine. He can just do this other thing. And in fact, that other thing doesn't exist anymore. So that was a big hurdle. I think another hurdle is always financial. Profit first, people second, no mission. If you're in a nonprofit, we say no margin, no mission. But it is so true in a business, right? You can't work without capital. And, I'm not a financial person by nature, but learning what's important about it and finding people who I can have as good advisors in the financial part is, do what you know how to do really well and find other people to do stuff that you don't doing really well. So understanding your own strengths is just tantamount to running a business. And sometimes I thought I could do too much, for sure.
Wow. So much. I mean, there's about 7 episodes we could do on just some of those topics, right? But I think being relevant, right? The industry, the bookkeeping industry and accounting profession industry is under a massive change, a flux with cloud accounting and things changing, hundreds of apps coming out all the time. And it is real for our listener to deal with this. When you were going through that, staying relevant, was that difficult for you, or was it something that you're the type of person that just, gets on with it?
So I am that kind of person. If on the Enneagram, I'm an 8 with the 7 wing or 9 wing, I guess. And then in the MBTI, I'm an ENFP, which is definitely a person who gets bored quickly. And my personality type lends itself to finding out new things and being curious and like diving deep into new things to understand them. And sometimes you go, you dive deep and it was worthless. But what you learn in the worthless of, in finding out that something isn't relevant or it isn't worth it, is you learn how to identify those things faster the next time. So that is my nature, to look around and find stuff. But I'm also a person who, I'm super busy in my life. I have a family. I'm the breadwinner, like I said. I'm involved in my community. So you got to keep your eye on the ball because the ball's moving faster than you think, right? And finding ways what are the guardrails and figuring out what are those things in your business that will tell you when things aren't quite right. And some things are universal, like profit margin, but every business has something a little bit different. So figuring those out. But I'm always searching for what's best. So I guess I'm fortunate and cursed at the same time by that tendency.
Yes, definitely. I can appreciate that. And you mentioned you're part of the entrepreneur organization, which I would imagine is another strength in that you don't try to do it all by yourself. You surround yourself with other people that are dealing with these challenges in their businesses.
I am. When I started my company, the first person I had on my payroll was actually our controller. Because, I shouldn't spend my time figuring that stuff out. I can look at a spreadsheet, I can interpret a spreadsheet, but I'm not most valuable there, right? Today I use an outsourced service because finding the people I needed at the rate I want, at a good pay scale that would get me a good person became harder and harder and harder in San Francisco. So it's outsourced and I have more access. I have more access to more talent, but less access immediately when I want it, right?
Yeah.
But it's super important to understand what you do best and where you're most valuable, for sure.
And so when this comes to employees, you've written a lot, you're working with millennials and managing people, these multiple generations. I was watching one of your videos, and the key thing stood out is that this is the first time we've had 4 generations at work. How does that start to come into play with how our listener would have to be thinking in their business?
Well, now actually we're going to have 5 generations in the businesses because Gen Z is entering right this second, and people are working much longer than they ever thought they were going to have to work, right? I'm the last year of boomer. I think my generation thought they'd be done at 50. Well, that came and went. And people are working well into their 80s now, if they're living that long. And today, if you're born today in North America, you have over a 50% chance of living to 110.
Wow.
So we have to be thinking about working much longer than our history would prepare us for, right? Because, financing a 30-year retirement with healthcare in the United States, at least, that's just a daunting task. And most of us in the United States are not prepared for that. So we're all going to be working much, much longer. So the fact that we have 5 generations in the workplace is new because there's 5 specific generations are named for specific reasons because they have similar traits or they have similar experiences. And what is true about all people, though, is they want to be understood and they want to matter. It doesn't matter what generation you're in, right? But the problem I had with keeping millennials was that I was just do this work. And they were like, why? Why should I do this work? And this never occurred to me to ask when I was their age, because that's not how we were raised, right? But this generation's been raised with much more power, much more access to information, much more access to people. They can change the course of history with a tweet. And we have lots of examples of that. And they want to matter. They want to know what's going on. So when we think about communication among the generations, anything you do to help a millennial or a Gen Z feel appreciated, understand their role, and get to work helps everybody. It just feels a little different for those of us who just did what we were told. And we just have to get over ourselves on that one for more than anything else.
Wow. It's remarkable what we're up against now. And in just a short period of time, things have changed. Well, it seems like a short period of time anyways. And this is that one of those things I think that we all have to accept is that the things have changed. They will continue to change. And that's the other thing that's also exciting is we don't know what's coming tomorrow in terms of what will change in work and health and the economy as well. Do you find in your own business when you're bringing these principles to your business, do you find that people are quick to adapt these new ways of thinking, or does it take time? What's the advice if one of our listeners was faced with this?
Well, I think that everybody's different, right? The most important thing from a leadership perspective is that you have a mindset that is grounded in this, right? That is grounded in a few facts, right? What are some facts? Grounded in the fact that, when you hire someone, they're going to leave you. So, it's not, gnashing of teeth. How do we get people to acknowledge that and say, okay, we want you to be here for a long time and for it to be a great experience for you to be, achieve what you want in your career. And when you don't want to do that anymore, we want you to leave and come back, right? That's the first thing. That is the boomerang principle in general, right? If you encourage people to come back and allow people to come back to your company, you have a strategic advantage over those companies that don't. Because millennials and Gen Z behind them have been raised to know a few things. One is that their job is going to change, within 5 years, everything you know now is going to change. So you have to keep fresh and keep relevant. They've seen their parents not keep fresh and relevant and suffer for it through the last decade, for sure. They also know that, I'm not interested in doing one thing. I can't imagine doing one thing for my whole life. And they anticipate having, not for jobs, like in different companies, they anticipate having maybe 4, 5, 6 careers, having different titles, having different functions in an organization. And it's sort of hubris on our part to imagine that a company, big or small, can contain everybody who might have very divergent ideas, right? The most important thing of that is, how do you marry someone's skills with their interests for as long as you can in an organization at a high rate of performance? And that is a conversation. That is a relationship with your employees. That is, here's our high performance level. We're going to help you do whatever you can. What else are you interested in? Like, is there anything else that you're interested in that you can we can put to work here? Because if you can help people be interested in things and have the things that are skill-based that maybe it's not their passion, that's how you're going to marry a person to a company for a long time. Not a job, but a company, a community of people. And then when they leave you, right, how do you help them go be successful somewhere else? Because the more you can help people be successful either in your own company or in other companies, the bigger footprint you're making in the world, and the bigger positive footprint you have, and the more goodness comes back. And when someone's out from you, has left you, but is thinking about you, oh, you know what? I should hire Michael. I should hire Joe. I should hire Sally. I used to work with them. I know them. That's the loyal act that we're asking for. So, having these ideas of understanding how people are operating today versus how I'm the last year a boomer, how I was raised to run a company and how I need to run a company today are such a different thing. But understanding the dynamics is where everything starts. And when you can adjust your expectation to that and not be stuck is when you get more longevity out of people and more loyalty once they've left you.
It's amazing when you think of that, and that there's quite a bit to think about, because typically in a business, people are working with you and then they leave and it's like you're being left, right? Whereas this new philosophy is really starting from the beginning, is like, this is going to be in a state of flux continually.
Yes, continually.
Which is interesting, and if it's done correctly, and that's maybe what we can talk about, is how to prepare yourself and your staff, like some tips to be implementing this, because there's great value if you end on good terms. Then they come back with other experiences, new ideas. There's a lot of benefits.
They're more valuable too. Yeah. Look, as someone who comes back to you will be more valuable to you the second time than they were the first time. Because not only do they understand your culture, but they've learned something else in the world. And and in that learning, they said, you know what? I liked where I was. That was a good place to be. Maybe I can take this learning and put it in that place.
That's right.
It is challenging because it is hard when people leave. I had an employee leave, Joe. Joe left about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now, August. And he's been with us. He had been with us for almost 8 years. And about 18 months ago, he'd been promoted 4 times, super successful, just great guy, huge contributor to the organization. And I've been in conversation with him for about 18 months where he's like, I don't know if I want to do that. He turned 42, moved to Los Angeles. I don't know if I want to do this anymore, Lee, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't know what I want to do. I said, okay, well, there's no reason for you to leave to go figure that out. As long as you're doing your job and contributing, let me help you figure out. I'm happy to help you figure out what you want to do. We can give you I can have you do reading. I can do some mentoring with you. There's some classes or some podcast, whatever it is, right? And as long as you're contributing, you don't have, it's not disloyal to tell me now that you don't want to do this for the rest of your life. It's fine, right? So 18 months we were talking about this. He did some reading. We did some mentor sessions. I had him listen to some podcasts. He did his own stuff. And then this year, we had a woman in our company whose husband died, which was just devastating to all of us. We're a small company. And he took over her work while she was on bereavement for 3 months. And then he had 2 big projects. So he was caring for bereavement. He had 2 big projects, and everything. He finished, the 2 big projects finished, and Liz comes back off bereavement. And he comes to me and says, if I'm going to leave, I should leave now. because Liz is back, my big projects are done, and I'm only on one other client who, frankly, we were going to transition me off of that anyway. So instead of reassigning me to stuff that I might leave in 3 or 4 months when I figure it out, why don't I leave now, right? And of course it's disappointing. Of course I wanted him to stay forever, right? But then he said, I'll give you 8 weeks. He gave me an 8-week notice, right?
Wow.
And his approach, and this, he sort of lives the boomerang principle. He lived everything about it, was he was disappointed that people were going to miss him. He wanted to be missed, but at the same time, he said, the best thing I can do is make sure that no one misses me. That's my job, to make sure no one misses me. And I said, Joe, everyone's always going to miss you, like your person, your personality, you as a person. But if we don't miss your work, then you've done your job. If someone else could fill in your hole. And that's really, I'm so proud of this, not just because it tells my story, right? But he's a person who anybody would want to hire. And the fact that he chose to be here at Double Forte, a very small company, is a point of pride that illustrates the story, right? It just illustrates the point that we're all changing. We're all different. We all have different aspirations. We are not our jobs. Which is a lesson it took me a long time to understand. And as a leader, sometimes we have to do things that we don't want to do, right? We're running businesses like, oh, wouldn't it be nice to go to the Riviera? Well, yes, it would, but I got to make payroll, Employees versus leaders are two different things. Business owners and employees are two different categories of people. And we need to make sure we understand that those people do not have the drive that we do as leaders and business owners. And our job is to make space for people who don't want to run their own businesses, right? Who don't want that responsibility, who don't want the freedom of that responsibility. But how do we keep people around us who don't want to be owners? Well, they're not like us. So you have to understand them. And the point of pride is, if you're a company where people leave you and keep you on the resume, you have won the battle.
Isn't that true? Such an interesting thought around that mindset too, of being in a small business. The business can reflect yourself, and it becomes a little bit like you. And so if we're projecting ourselves into the business and we're projecting the way our work ethic is and what's important to us, that can be conflicting. And so it's important to just be aware of that and take a look at what is it that I want, what is it that my staff want, and notice the differences. And if you want to retain people and have people be around, you have to give them what they value.
You do. And it's challenging.
It is, especially as a small business where I can just hear I've heard many of our listeners in working with them say, can't we just get on with it and get the work done? Because the work that they're doing there's a lot of work and it's got to get done, and they're doing the work. So, enough about this chitter chatter. I can even hear my late father saying, it's like, come on, it's, we're burning daylight here. Let's just do the work, And
it's different today though. I mean, people do the work because they understand their role. The top 25%, we're all looking for those top 25% of people. Every business leader, right? We want to have good people. We don't want to be mediocre. And, when you have a mediocre person in your business, you work longer. I mean, it's just, hello. So we're all we're all striving for those 25% of people. Well, those 25% of people, they have the choice. They can work wherever they want. And in a good economy and in a bad economy. And those people, those top 25%ers that aren't, business owners, they want to know, no matter how old they are, they want to matter. They want to be doing good stuff. They want to be around people who are doing good things and not dragging them down, right? And they want to have meaning. And as long you have to, your accounting business, your PR firm, right? We're all service businesses helping other companies do their stuff, right? So why do you exist? Well, Double Forte exists to help good companies do great things in their categories. That's probably the same kind of mission that your listeners have too, right? They're helping companies do what they do best. And how you choose your clients then becomes the why. And so how do you tie it all up so that when someone shows up to work, there is some chitter chatter, no matter what type of person you are. And the people are bonded together in a positive business relationship, because when people have, the most efficient businesses, meaning highly producing businesses, are the ones that have the best cultures and are happy workplaces. And it sounds really woo-woo, but there's empirical evidence that backs that up. So there's a lot of research on this, that when people feel connected to and in relationship, in positive relationship, not only with their job, feeling good, that they understand their role, and that they understand that when they show up, something happens, and that people can count on them and they can count on other people, that those businesses outperform other businesses that are negative in nature.
Wow. It's amazing when the little bit of woo-hoo can go a long way.
It's true.
That's right.
It's a little woo-woo, right? And for me, I grew up, this is not natural. This was not natural. It's not how, my father was a cardiac surgeon. In my household, please and thank you were implied. Because, if I say please and thank you in the operating room, someone might die. Well, about a decade ago, I guess now, I had some surgery and I was out for 6 weeks, and I just took time to recover. And then coming back from it, people were so happy that I was gone. So I was like, well, just give me one thing you missed. Well, I missed you being here, Lee, because you have a big laugh. I'm like, okay, well, that's good. So out of that experience, I hired a coach, which I recommend to any business leader, hiring a coach. And I worked with this one for 5 or 6 months, and we did a 360 process, which is hard when you're the leader, because who do you work for? And in that 360 process, I found out that everyone thought I was not very generous. Not generous, the word. People didn't think I appreciated them. I was devastated. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm the nicest person I know. Right. And Lee, you don't say please and thank you. We don't. I'm like, oh my gosh, right? And so I did a lot of reading, a little self-reflection, and my coach helped me to understand and figure out how I can say please and thank you in a natural way. And the data is that those teams that feel appreciated outperform those that don't by up to 30%, which for those accountants in the room drops right to the bottom line, right? Your group's going to understand this more than any other people I talk to. It drops right to efficiency. It drops right to profit. And what you have to do is just say please and thank you. So I did this for a week. I thought people were going to think I was nuts, right? Like, who's she kidding? I felt like such a tool. But I did it for a week, and then it was okay. And then I ended up doing it for a month. And then all of a sudden, everyone else is saying please and thank you. And then 4 months later, I measured this because we track our time. We were looking at unbillable hours. And my unbillable hour rate had dropped by 7%. And the only thing we did different was say please and thank you. Wow. So we benefit from it because I was watching it, and I was being very intentional about it. And there's some things that we did so that it became more natural. And I forced it on people. They don't really like it when I make them do it, but they all do it. And it's all very exciting when they're finished, right? A lot of energy in the room. But these are the things that matter. And when we all figure out where we matter, and then where we as leaders impact the people around us and how we can help them be more efficient by having a better workplace, these are the things that I try to share in my books.
These are fantastic. I mean, lovely story where you had to deal with this yourself and the outcome of it, hiring a coach and going through that. I mean, it takes a lot of courage to go through that. And again, it comes back to your passion for seeing your business succeed, doing what's uncomfortable and going where you need to go in order to get the results. But, you made a change. Please and thank you. I mean, here I am asking myself, am I saying please? Am I saying thank you? What am I like as a leader in my own business, right? And I'm sure listener is,
no,
I'm sure
you should.
Sorry, as I should, right? Yeah. And that's
the
it.
The reason you should, because it helps it's not, it sounds woo-woo, and it sounds like, just say please and thank you, be nice. No, there's actually data. And you run a better business when people feel appreciated, period.
Absolutely. Well, with a 13-month-old and a 4.5-year-old, I mean, this is please and thank you. It's like, it's on our plates, dinner plates all day long.
Right.
We're constantly telling them. And every time I say, please, can you say please or thank you? How about that? I'm thinking, you know what? Am I saying, am I doing it enough? So it's definitely a good time for me to just be practicing it. And I think good for the listener right now to be thinking about it, not only with our employees, but with our other stakeholders, our partners, our customers.
I'll tell you what the exercise we do. This is what we did for 12 weeks in a row. And now I do it when maybe once a month. For 12 weeks in a row, at the end of every staff, we have a staff meeting every week. And at the end of every staff meeting, we have this moment. Now it's called rally cry. At the time, it was called appreciation time because I forced it on people. And we did this for 12 weeks in a row because that takes a while. You have to do things a lot to make it a habit, right? And everybody stood up and I said, okay, find 3 people and tell them why you appreciate them. And it can't be that you like their shoes. It has to be something about them being in your presence at work, right? I appreciate the fact that you told me you were going to be late today so I could rearrange my day to accommodate that, not just wait for you. I appreciate thank you so much for seeing, bringing me that when you saw that typo on my document, I didn't see it. You didn't have to do that. Thank you so much for doing that. Or thank you so much for, just really appreciate the fact that you always say hello. Thank you so much. And, people were a little uncomfortable. Sometimes I get the rolling of the eyes, but I'll tell you, every time we do it, the energy in the room is just like, boom, it's just so high. And then people go back to work and, the buzz is so positive. So there's like a actual action item you can take. Just go do that for a few weeks in a row and see what happens.
Wow. I'm going to do that with my wife tonight.
I did it with my husband too. It's awesome. It definitely helps.
She'll say, all right, great. Now give me a massage.
Right. That's okay.
Which is great. Well, this is fantastic. I love this. It's amazing. Something as simple as this, even though it's going to take being uncomfortable, perhaps it is. I can just picture your team and the energy shift, and it might be uncomfortable for someone to do it, but boy, it sure feels good to be appreciated.
It does. And it pays off in spades.
It's beautiful. Lee, I'd love for you to share a little bit about where people can find out more about the work that you do and your books. What would be the best route for them to take?
The best thing to do is go to my website, www.leecaraher.com, LeeCaraher.com. You can find my books there. You can find some worksheets there. You can find some of my videos and all that kind of other resources there. So you can follow me on Twitter at @LeeCaraher and on LinkedIn, and I share this stuff in a blog all the time.
That's fantastic. Well, we'll have all of those links in the show notes for our listener. And Lee, I just, on behalf of our listeners, want to thank you for generously giving us your wisdom, your time. It is very much appreciated.
Thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate being with you.
Thank you. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. Again, to learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.